Hey everybody, this is John. Today I wanted to go over how we kind of coach our athletes with their nutrition. Now this is kind of it's a very hard subject with the kids because one, it's hard to get kids to eat what you want them to eat anyways. I imagine all the parents listening are like, yep. But pretty much we start very, very basic with the kids because we understand pretty much how difficult it is. And our kids don't like to sleep a lot, so they like to look at their phones late up at night, get no sleep. They come in, they undereat, and then they're doing a lot more than what we used to do, as kids, because there's all these club teams, there's all these skill training, there's, training with us. So there's a lot demanded of them, and then we're not putting enough in the gas tank for them. So right off the bat, and we ask our kids pretty much every day when they come in, I'm like, what'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for lunch? Just get an idea of getting into their head, like, hey, I have to eat breakfast, I have to eat lunch. So my big thing is I just want them eating because most athletes will say skip, or most of our young adults, I guess you could say, aren't eating 3 meals a day. They'll wake up, they're late to school, they get over there, they have kind of a snack. Who knows when they have lunch? Everyone's day is different. When they do have lunch, typically they don't have enough, and then they might get something before practice. Then they go to practice, they come back, and then they have a huge dinner. And my biggest thing with the kids is like, one, if you're not eating breakfast, we need to get you eating breakfast. If you're skipping lunch, we need you to get having lunch. So I'm big on like, hey, first we just need to get you 3 meals a day. We just need to get food in you. I'm not even worried yet about what it is. Yes, we're gonna make fun of our kids, joke around with them if they only have like 1 Pop-Tart for breakfast. We're like, hey, at least make it 2, but because we need them to have fuel. But at the same time, if they're having nothing and then they're having something for breakfast, I'm not worried about it just right yet because I'm meeting them where they're at and say, hey, we're gonna go and increase or change what the food is and then increase from there. So once we get athletes getting to the point where they're having 3 meals a day, say they still feel hungry. If they're sore all the time, they're going to need food, okay? Say if they have a lot on their plate, they're gonna need food. That's almost the case with almost all of our athletes. They need more fuel. So the second thing that we would go to, this is the first thing that we go to if athletes need to gain weight, or right off the bat, if they're eating 3 meals a day and they still don't feel like they're recovering enough or have enough energy, we want them to have a shake. Now, there's lines like shakes are for fakes and stuff like that, but shakes are very easy. They're a tool. Do they replace real food? No, I think real food is better than the shake, obviously. But our athletes are, time commitment wise, in a pinch all the time. They have a pretty structured day. They have, school, and then they have practice, and then they can do something like training, then they can go have a club practice. So there's a lot of things in that day. They're not gonna be able to sit down with a Tupperware with chicken and rice and eat it, 3 times a day to make sure that they're getting their carbs and proteins met. So the big thing that we like to do is we say, hey, if you're eating 3 a day, especially kids don't really have an appetite, we want them to take a protein shake. Now, a protein shake we use more so for convenience, for them to get fuel, to increase their protein intake, because that is a big thing that we want to focus on with the athletes, okay? And then from there, they can get something that tastes really good. You can make a shake and put more things in it so that they can get more calories and they can drink it. So if they're drinking it, it's going to be a lot easier to get more calories in for them, which they need to fuel them throughout the day. So that's why we go a shake route where once they are eating consistently, if they're eating like 2 meals a day, I'm like, don't add a shake, you need to eat another meal. You need to figure it out. And then from there, I'd say, let's add a shake from there. And then that's when I would go and get cleaning it up. And what I mean by cleaning it up is choosing better foods. So from there, say you're getting 3 days a meal or 3 meals a day, you're adding a shake, so we're at 4 right there. I'd say cleaning it up, and then I'd probably add plus 1 meal, okay? I want to clean it up. We want to try to get protein at every single meal. That's kind of hard to do, especially if in the morning they don't have time, to make eggs. We'd say, hey, well, then we need to figure out what we can do to get you protein in at every meal, or trying to. We also like them to have a well-rounded diet. I don't like taking things out of kids' nutrition plans, whether they're trying to gain weight or they're trying to lose weight. I think you have a lot of influence with athletes with their nutrition plan that can go very south, very quickly, or it can go very well. We don't want it to go south. I don't want athletes to have a bad relationship with exercise or nutrition, for the rest of their lives. So I don't want to say, oh, hey, you're trying to lose weight as an athlete. Well, we need to, constrict you. You can't have carbs anymore. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can only eat at these times. That is going to set up in their head that that's the only way that they're going to lose weight the rest of their life, which we don't believe in. We believe in whole meals, and they can control how much they're eating, but we need to make sure that you're fueled, enough to make sure that you are still, eating enough for all of your practices and clubs and all that stuff, but then also, just as a regular human being healthy. That's our main priority. You're a human first before you're an athlete. So we then want to say, hey, you know what? After you work out, we want you to have protein and carbs. We need athletes to have carbs because all of their sports require that fuel source for their energy. So we'd say, I want you to have the majority of your meals being protein and carbs. We obviously want vegetables. We obviously want fruit. That never hurt anybody. We need those things in their diet to be healthy. We do need fats. That would probably come more so with the proteins if you use oil to cook with the food. But pretty much with our kids, we're like, hey, we just want you to try to have protein at every meal. That's our main thing. And if you can add another meal, I usually like to say snack to go from there. We'll either say add another snack if that's easier, or we'll make these 3 meals a little bit bigger. And it doesn't have to be like a huge difference, And then depending on what you would go next, if you're trying to gain weight, I would say you gotta eat more every meal. Your 3 big meals a day, you're gonna have probably 2 snacks and a shake. If you're trying to gain weight as a thin athlete and a young athlete, it is very difficult to eat enough to beat your metabolism because your metabolism is so high, and you're going to be full all the time. The weight room stuff, this stuff is easy. This stuff is easy to come in and lift weights. It's fun to do that. It's only an hour a day. Nutrition's all day. So getting the athletes to be getting used to being full, which is not a very comfortable thing, and we have to slowly increment that, because if we try to go it too hard, the chances of them wanting to keep doing that is going to go down. But also too, your guts get kind of messed up. You have trouble going to the bathroom, stuff like that. Now, we have to be very careful if we're going the opposite way with say losing weight as an athlete. Again, you have to be very careful. One, we give recommendations. I'm not saying, hey, you have to do this nutrition plan or else you're going to fail. If you're giving nutrition plans to anybody and you're not a registered dietitian, that is actually illegal. So we give recommendations. We say, hey, this is what we would think that you should do. Have meals like this that are total well-rounded meals. And with that, say that the athlete's trying to lose weight, we'd say, one, we need to make sure that you're fueled. So you need to be getting in, enough fuel for you to be surviving. One, we need to maintain your muscle mass. We need to go through your regular day of just what is required of you to survive as a human. Then we need to fuel your workouts that you're doing and recover from them. And then we can worry about, say, taking away things that are kind of doing too much. Normally with our kids, they're just younger adults. So pretty much all they do is the same thing that I would do. I would eat perfectly fine, then you and your friends go over to Tully's and you eat a whole loaded fries by yourself with all that delicious ranch. Now, what we say to them is like, hey, you can go and do that. That's fine. We want you to go with your friends. We want you to hang out, have the loaded fries. Just don't try to eat the whole thing. That's where we say, hey, let's try to control the amount that we're doing. And that's where it ends up getting difficult, where, just like with the adults, it's the same thing, being like, hey, I'm going to go do this with my friends. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. I'm here and there. I didn't eat all day, and then I had a huge meal, so I went over in calories because I had my huge meal. It's the same thing as the adults. They just have a little bit kind of more of a, I guess a process we would say with them to get them to be choosing the right meals and choosing the right foods and feeling better and fueling up. Also, a part of this is drinking water. Most kids aren't drinking water until they're like, start playing sports, because they're like, oh man, I feel like I'm thirsty all the time. And it's like, well, because you're demanding more, you need more. So with the kids, I would be shooting to try to get at least over 80 ounces a day. I mean, they should be over 100, but again, baby steps. If they're having 1 glass a day of water, we're trying to get like 3, and then go from there. And so it's always trying to meet them where they're at. But this is kind of a breakdown of like what we would do from the get-go. This is really what we'd say to kids when they first started. We'd say like, we just start talking to them. What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for lunch? And then everyone knows what's good or bad. They're like, yeah, at a gas station cheeseburger. And you're like, that's probably not a good meal for you before you come and work out. And then kind of educate them like, hey, try to eat something like this, try to eat something like that, and go from there. So this is kind of like a very, this is a very broad subject, but this is kind of how we kind of narrow it down and say, hey, this is what we think would work best, and then go from there. This is very important for young kids. We're trying to give them the best habits for going on in the future. That's really my goal, is say, hey, I'm going to give you this advice now, but this is really going to help you long term and set you up right now for success in your sport and feeling good, being healthy, getting some muscle, dropping some unwanted body fat, and performing better for your sport. So if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know and I'll answer them below.